War is serious business, but that doesn't mean every military strategy was a stroke of genius. In fact, history is filled with some truly ridiculous military strategies that completely backfired. Today, we're diving into the most spectacular failures, plans that were so misguided, they ended up doing more harm than good. From attacking birds to fighting against the weather, these stories will leave you scratching your head and maybe even laughing a little. So let's get into it. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating history content. Let's start with one of the most ridiculous military operations in history, the Great Emu War. In 1932, Australian farmers were facing a serious problem. 20,000 emus were destroying their crops. So, what did the government do? They declared war on the emus, of course. Armed with machine guns, soldiers were sent to take care of the birds, but things didn't go as planned. The emus, being fast and hard to hit, quickly outsmarted the soldiers. After a few weeks of embarrassment and wasted ammo, the government surrendered to the birds. That's right, Australia lost a war to emus. The Great Emu War didn't solve the problem, but it did give us one of the most laughable military failures in history. Next up, we have the Battle of Karansebes, which might just be the most embarrassing self-inflicted defeat in history. In 1788, the Austrian army was preparing to fight the Ottoman Turks. One night, the Austrian soldiers set up camp near the town of Karansebes, and some of the soldiers found alcohol nearby. After a little too much drinking, a fight broke out between the drunken soldiers and their sober comrades. In the chaos, someone fired a shot and panic spread through the camp. Thinking they were under attack by the Turks, the soldiers started shooting at each other. The entire Austrian army ended up retreating from an enemy that didn't even exist. By the time the Turks actually arrived, they found thousands of dead or wounded Austrian soldiers, all victims of friendly fire. This battle will go down in history as a classic case of shooting yourself in the foot, literally. When you think of Napoleon Bonaparte, you probably think of one of the greatest military minds in history. But even Napoleon had his blunders, and none was bigger than his decision to invade Russia in 1812. Napoleon marched his massive army into Russia, expecting a quick victory. But the Russians had other plans. They used a scorched earth strategy, burning their own towns and crops to leave Napoleon's troops with no supplies. As winter approached, things went from bad to worse. The brutal Russian winter decimated Napoleon's army, with freezing temperatures, starvation, and disease killing off thousands of soldiers. By the time he decided to retreat, it was too late. Napoleon's once invincible army was reduced to a fraction of its size, and the invasion was a spectacular failure. The lesson here? Never underestimate Russian winters. In 1976, tensions between North and South Korea were high, but one incident took things to a whole new level of ridiculous. It all started with a poplar tree in the Korean Demilitarized Zone, DMZ. A group of American soldiers tried to trim the tree because it was blocking their view, but North Korean soldiers attacked them, killing 2 U.S. servicemen. In response, the U.S. launched Operation Paul Bunyan, a massive show of force to cut down the tree. They sent heavily armed troops, tanks, helicopters, and even nuclear bombers, all to chop down one tree. Fortunately, no one died during the operation, but the sheer overreaction to a tree trimming job made this one of the most absurd military operations ever. The tree came down, but the story of Operation Paul Bunyan will live on in military history as a reminder that sometimes cooler heads should prevail. Now let's talk about one of the most tragic military blunders in history, the charge of the Light Brigade. During the Crimean War in 1854, British forces were engaged in a battle against Russian troops. A group of British cavalry, known as the Light Brigade, was ordered to attack a Russian position, but due to a miscommunication, they ended up charging directly into the wrong enemy line, one that was heavily fortified with artillery. Despite their bravery, the Light Brigade was massacred. The charge lasted just a few minutes, But in that short time, hundreds of British soldiers were killed or wounded. The charge of the Light Brigade is remembered as a symbol of military courage, but it was also a spectacular failure caused by poor communication. It's a tragic reminder that even the bravest soldiers can be brought down by bad orders. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more epic historical stories and fascinating facts. We post regularly, so stay tuned for more ridiculous moments from history.